My fiancé suddenly walked out of our cake tasting appointment and texted me, "I cannot marry you. I need someone more exciting. You are not on my level." I told the bakery. Cancel the order. An hour later, I found out he had run straight to his ex. The same woman who dumped him 2 years ago. 3 days later, he and his ex were both standing at my door, panicking. While I finally closed the door on my old life. Until a few days ago, I, Ella, a 31-year-old project operations specialist, would have proudly told you my life was a perfectly managed pipeline. Everything was predictable, accountable, and organized into color-coded blocks on a shared digital calendar. I had a fiancé, a wedding in exactly 3 months, and a Pinterest board that was a symphony of rustic yet modern design. My future looked like the straight, clean line of a project timeline: engagement, wedding, mortgage, and maybe 2 children. Jason, my fiancé, was the highlight reel. He worked in tech sales. Charming and quick with a joke, always turned on for the crowd. I was the back-end system that quietly ensured the whole operation did not crash. Our relationship was the perfect contrast. He provided the sparkle. I provided the structure. We had been together for 2 years, engaged for 7 months, and the invitations for our renovated brick warehouse ceremony, complete with string lights, had just gone out. The cake tasting was supposed to be the fun part, a simple checkbox to tick off the list. We had booked a Tuesday afternoon slot at an incredibly Instagrammable bakery downtown. The air was rich with the scent of vanilla, butter, and refined sugar. I arrived 10 minutes early because that is who I am. Jason showed up 15 minutes late because that is who he is. He gave me a quick kiss, but his eyes were darting toward the door. His phone was a constant presence in his hand, screen down, but never out of reach. "You okay?" I asked as we sat at the small round table near the window. "Yeah, just work," he said, forcing a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. Traffic was insane. He always defaulted to traffic, even when the highway was empty. It was his go-to excuse for anything that required effort or promptness. The baker, a woman whose apron was as immaculate as her white marble counter, brought out the first tray. Miniature works of art. Vanilla bean with raspberry filling, dark chocolate with salted caramel, almond with lemon curd. I took a bite of the vanilla, closing my eyes for a second. "Oh my goodness." I laughed. I would marry this cake. Jason gave a polite, distant laugh. He cut off a tiny corner of the vanilla sample, chewed mechanically, and set his fork down. "Not a fan?" I asked, trying to keep the lightness in my tone. "It is fine," he said. "They all taste kind of similar." I glanced at him, surprised. "You just started. We have 3 more to go. Give it a chance, Mr. Harsh Critic." As the baker brought out the next set, the anxiety started to creep in. I kept up my commentary, trying to draw him in, referencing texture and sweetness. He nodded, gave vague one-word answers, and subtly checked his phone whenever he thought my focus was elsewhere. Something felt off. It was not the usual work stress, it was a distant, quiet kind of off. Like he was mentally packing a suitcase while sitting right across from me. I felt the draft of it under the locked door of my control. I reached across the table and rested my hand on his. "Hey," I said softly, my voice low. "You seem miles away. Are you sure everything is okay?" He pulled his hand back quickly, a minimal movement to adjust his cuff, avoiding my gaze. It is fine, Ella. I am just tired. Long week. It is Tuesday. I pointed out lightly, determined not to sound accusatory. He did not smile. We finished the remaining samples in near silence. I exhausted my repertoire of small jokes and questions. The baker, sensing the unacknowledged tension, smiled brightly and said she would grab the contract and pricing breakdown. The instant the swinging door closed behind her, Jason pushed his chair back. I need to go, he said, his voice clipped and flat. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Go where? We are about to look at the contracts. I cannot do this right now, he repeated, gesturing vaguely between us, the table, and the pastel samples. My stomach plummeted, a sickening, slow drop. Jason, what are you talking about? We are in the middle of a meeting. I will text you, he said, already grabbing his coat and keys. I watched his back as he walked out, the bell over the bakery door chiming cheerfully, as if nothing significant had just been abandoned. The baker returned with a neat folder in her hand, her practiced smile in place. Okay, so for servings and frosting, Oh, where did your fiancé go? I swallowed hard, the denial already tightening my throat. He just had to step out for a second. I am not sure. I think we might need to pause on the contract. Her professional smile faltered, replaced by deep, sudden compassion. Of course, the baker said, her voice dropping into a tone of gentle understanding. Do you want to take the paperwork home? Think it over. No. I heard myself say, surprisingly steady. Let us just hold off for now. I will let you know. I managed to thank her and walk through the door, determined to maintain control, until I was safely outside. The parking lot was half empty, the afternoon sun glaring off the asphalt. Jason's car, a dark gray sedan I had meticulously organized the maintenance schedule for, was already gone. I pulled out my phone, expecting the promised text. Something mundane, sorry, minor fire at work. Be right back. Anything that would make his exit feel less like a calculated, slow-motion collapse of my reality. Nothing. My screen was blank. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. The same recorded message, his voice chipper and professionally charming, telling me to leave a message. I took a deep, shaky breath, fighting the urge to shatter my phone against the nearest brick wall. I tried a third time. My call rang once, maybe twice, and then abruptly stopped. Declined. He had actively rejected my call. I was still staring at the screen. The word declined branding itself onto my vision when the message finally came through. It was not a text. It was a communication from an instant messaging app we both used for quick work messages. 4 short lines, devoid of emotion, devoid of a personalized signature. I cannot marry you. I need someone more exciting. You are not on my level. I am sorry. The world warped. For a moment, I honestly believed I was looking at someone else's phone. Or perhaps reading a foreign language. The words did not stack up into comprehensible meaning. Not on his level. We had picked out paint colors and argued over modular couches. He had cried when he proposed. He had repeatedly called me his home, his anchor. Now, in 12 hastily typed words, I was somehow beneath him. I stood there for an unknown amount of time. The sounds of traffic swelled into a dull roar around my ears. The baker eventually stepped outside to empty a trash can, paused, glanced at my face, and then very deliberately turned her back and pretended I did not exist. I appreciated the silent privacy. Eventually, my body remembered how to operate. The trembling started, not in my heart, but in my hands. The drive home was a fog. I remember the turn signal clicking, the rigid grip of my fingers on the steering wheel, and the sheer effort of remembering to stop at red lights. When I arrived at our apartment building, the hallway felt subtly wrong, lighter, somehow. Inside, the wrongness snapped into sharp focus. It was not that everything was gone, that would have been too honest. Only the essentials were missing. A line of empty hangers, where his 5 favorite shirts used to hang. The drawer where he kept his tangled mess of charging cables and random flash drives was half empty. His toothbrush was gone from the holder, leaving a faint, perfect ring of dried toothpaste on the ceramic, a small ghost of his routine. No note. No letter taped to the counter. Just the abrupt message in the parking lot and the surgical removal of his necessities. He had planned this. He had not panicked in the bakery and made a rash decision. He had taken what he needed, left what he did not, and then detonated our life in between cake samples. I sank onto the couch, the phone still clutched in my hand. The room felt suddenly hostile, everything we had chosen together now staging evidence against me. I did not cry. The emotion I expected, grief, was replaced by a stunning, cold emptiness. After a long time, the silence was too heavy. I called the one person who could handle my particular brand of crisis management, Noah. My best friend answered on the second ring. "Hey, future bride," he said cheerful. "How is the cake? Did you find my slice yet?" My voice sounded rough, unused. Jason called off the wedding. The silence that followed was total, far heavier than the bakery's. "What? Are you kidding me?" "Who walked out of the bakery?" I stated, staring at the blank television screen. "Texted me in the parking lot that he cannot marry me, that I am not on his level." When I got home, he had already taken some of his stuff. Noah let out a long, shuddering exhale. "Ella, I am so sorry. That is cruel. I honestly do not know what to say." "Do not say anything," I whispered. "Just listen." I hung up, the conversation too draining to continue. My fingers immediately sought out my laptop. Months ago, in a moment we thought was romantic, Jason and I had set up a shared cloud account to sync calendars, photos, and, foolishly, locations. "So we always know where the other is," he had said. My heart hammered against my ribs, a desperate, erratic rhythm. I logged in, saw my own location pinned neatly at our apartment, and then switched the profile to his. The map appeared, zoomed out. I watched it refine, slowly resolving the coordinates. It zoomed in on a familiar, residential part of town, a street I recognized, and a small, blue dot parked outside a house I had driven past once. A house he had pointed to, a house he had casually mentioned in passing. "That is where Britney's mom lives. I spent a lot of time there back in the day." The label over the pin confirmed the address. Jason had walked out of our cake tasting, texted me I was not on his level, and then driven straight to his ex-girlfriend's house. The worst part was not the surprise. Deep down, some small, tired part of me felt the quiet, cold confirmation of something I had perhaps ignored for too long. I woke up the next morning feeling like I had swallowed concrete. For a few blurry seconds, My mind tried to play the old tape, wedding in 3 months, cake choices, RSVP reminders. Then I opened my eyes and saw the empty gap in the closet where Jason's clothes had been. Right. New tape. My phone was face down on the nightstand. It buzzed once, then again, insistent, dragging me into the world I wanted to ignore. Avoidance has never been my thing, however. I flipped the phone over. 17 unread messages. Most were from our mutual friends or his groomsmen, names mixed in with mine, from the massive wedding group chat. The previews were a blur. What happened? Are you okay? We are here for you. I tapped into the first one. A text from a couple friend we had planned to take a joint vacation with. Ella, I am so sorry. Jason told us you checked out for a while, and that he had tried to fix things. None of us knew it was this bad. If you ever want to talk, I am here for both of you. I opened the next. I do not want to pick sides, but Jason said you were seeing someone else emotionally. That the engagement had not felt real to you for a long time. I hope you both find happiness. My chest went cold, not from heartbreak, but from a sudden, searing rush of anger. So that was the story. According to Jason, I was the one who was distant. I was the one who had checked out. We had called off the wedding together, and he was merely following through on my emotional retreat. I scrolled through the messages, each one layering a new coat of spin over the reality of me eating cake samples while he rehearsed his exit. I could have texted back with screenshots of his breakup message, or the map showing his little location, parked outside Britney's mother's house. I did not. I let them sit in their version for now. I got out of bed, showered, and put on the oversized gray sweater I usually reserved for weekend lounging. My reflection in the mirror looked like someone who had hit the pause button on life and forgotten where the play button was. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a name that made my stomach tighten. Melissa, Jason's little sister. She had been thrilled about the wedding, had texted me photographs of bridesmaids, dress options just for fun. Even though she was technically standing on his side. I hesitated, then answered. Riley, what the hell happened? Her voice was tight, thin with tension. I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. Did Jason not tell you? He told me you two had grown apart and decided together to cancel the wedding. She said, her voice dripping with bitterness. He said you were handling it privately, and that he did not want people taking sides. My jaw clenched. That is not what happened. Yeah, she said quietly. I figured, hence the call. So, I told her everything. I told her about the distance at the cake tasting, the text message in the parking lot, coming home to find his things already gone. I told her about logging into our shared account and seeing his location pinned at Britney's mother's house. On the other end of the line, Melissa went very, very still. He went to Britney's? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. He was there as of last night, I confirmed. Oh my God, she whispered, the words heavy with shame. Oh my God, Ella, I am so sorry. That is, I do not even have words. My parents are going to lose their minds. Do they know anything? I asked. He just told them the wedding was off, because you needed different things. She said bitterly. He made it sound mutual. I am going to kill him, gently, with love. A small, broken laugh escaped me. Do me a favor. Anything, she said immediately. Do not tell him we talked, I said. Just let it play out. I am done trying to manage his narrative for him. There was a pause. Okay, she said finally. I will not. But for the record, our family loves you. This is all on him. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed. Something inside me shifted from shock into motion. The chaos had happened. Now, it was time for the cleanup. I found a blank notebook, flipped to a fresh page, and wrote at the top, in neat, decisive block letters, wedding cancellations. Below that, I started my list. The project had begun. With the immediate panic suppressed, and the battle lines drawn with Melissa, the only logical step was to begin the clearance process. I found my best pen, looked at the wedding cancellations list I had started, and added the names venue, caterer, photographer, florist, and DJ. I drew a neat line through Keiki. Already handled, thanks to Jason. I treated the death of my wedding like the most demanding project I had ever managed at work. It required efficiency, detachment, and an utter lack of personal emotion. Each call was a miniature test of my control. The venue, the renovated brick warehouse with the exposed beams, was first. The coordinator, whose name was Sarah, and who had been incredibly enthusiastic about my spreadsheet of seating arrangements, sounded sympathetic but brisk. I am so sorry, Ella. It is in the contract. We will have to keep the deposit. That is fine, I said, my voice steady, though my stomach churned. Keep it. Consider it a breakup tax. The phrase was ridiculous, but saying it made Sarah pause. And that momentary shift in power was satisfying. Next was the caterer, then the photographer, then the florist. Each communication was a small knife twisting in my gut, reminding me of the hope and planning invested. But every time I heard, "We will cancel the contract," or "I will shred the paperwork," it felt like one of the tightly wound strings, connecting me to the old future, had been snipped. By the time I hung up with the DJ, whose playlist of early 2000 nostalgia was now utterly irrelevant, my throat was raw and my eyes were burning. Yet, a strange, quiet relief settled in my chest. He had detonated the plans. But I was the one clearing the rubble. Late that afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number I did not recognize. Definitely not local. I almost let it go to voicemail. I almost let the whole incident fade into the realm of things I would deal with later. But curiosity, sharp and morbid, won out. I answered, "Hello." There was a short pause, then a woman's voice. "Ella." "Yes. This is Britney," she said. "Can we talk?" Hearing the name out loud was like someone had dropped a sheet of glass in the middle of a silent room. It shattered my calm facade instantly. I leaned against the counter, suddenly needing the support. "What do you want, Britney?" "Look," she said, her words tumbling over each other. "I know this is weird, but I feel like there has been a huge miscommunication, and you deserve to hear my side." "Your side," I repeated slowly. I used a low, even tone, forcing the heat out of my voice. "Interesting. I did not realize I was in your story at all." "He told me you and Jason had broken up weeks ago." She rushed on. "He said the wedding was already off, that you both agreed it was not working. He told me he was free, Ella. If I had known." "You are at his mom's house, right?" I cut in. The direct question stopped her cold. He is there with you. A beat of silence passed. Yes. Put him on speaker, I said, the demand clean and precise. Since this apparently involves all three of us. Another pause. Then faint shuffling, followed by a slight metallic sound. Maybe a phone being set down. I pictured them in some familiar living room, the one he had grown up in. Two people suddenly forced into accountability. Jason's voice came through, tentative, muffled. Ella, why did you call? I did not call, Jason. Britney did. I paused, letting that sink in. You told her we had broken up weeks ago. That the wedding was off, that I had moved on. Did I miss that conversation somehow? Ella, I was going to talk to you, he said, his voice rising in that familiar panicked pitch. I have been thinking about ending things for a while. I just did not know how. So, you decided the most logical order of operations was 1. Line up a replacement. 2. Tell all your friends I had checked out. 3. Dump me via text in a bakery parking lot. 4. Drive straight to your ex's house. My voice was shaking, but the words came out like bullets. It is not like that, he protested weakly. I panicked. I felt trapped. You were so locked in on the wedding and I. And you what? I asked. You needed someone more exciting. Someone on your level. The silence from Britney was absolute. You lied to both of us. I stated, focusing only on the facts. You were still living here. You were still wearing your ring. You were eating cake samples with me, while texting her that you were free. I did not lie, he said, a touch of desperation in his tone. I just left things out. That is literally what lying is. I snapped. On the other end, Britney finally cleared her throat. Ella, I am sorry. I should have asked more questions. This is not on you, I said, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. You believed what he told you. I did too once. I hung up immediately, before either of them could speak again. My hand was shaking so violently, I nearly dropped the phone on the tile floor. I set it down on the cool counter, and braced my palms on the surface, breathing in and out until the room stopped tilting. The anger I felt was not wild or chaotic. It felt precise, clean, and utterly necessary. The first phase of the confrontation was over. And I was still standing. 2 days after the phone call, just as the afternoon light was starting to fade into a cool gray, someone knocked on my apartment door. I knew instantly, with a cold, solid certainty, who it was. The knock was tentative, apologetic, yet entitled. A sound only Jason could make. I opened the door without checking the peephole. Jason and Britney stood in the hallway. He looked terrible, his usual sharp, tailored appearance was replaced by wrinkled clothes, and eyes that looked like they had not slept since the cake tasting. Britney, next to him, looked equally uncomfortable, her posture screaming that she would prefer to be anywhere else on the planet. What do you want? I asked, keeping my body squarely in the frame, making it clear I was the boundary. Can we come in? Jason asked, his voice strained. We need to talk, face to face. Properly. No, I said simply. You can talk from there. He glanced at Britney, who visibly shrank away, then back at me. Ella, look, this got out of hand. I made some bad choices, okay? But we have all made mistakes. Is that your pitch? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. We have all made mistakes. So I should let this one slide. Britney spoke up, her voice soft and laced with nerves. I just think you deserve a proper explanation, Ella. Not over the phone. I already have an explanation, I countered. I have a timestamp text, and your shared location history. That is all the context I need. Jason dragged a hand over his face, a gesture of deep, self-pitying exhaustion. Look. I freaked out about the wedding. I felt like everything was happening too fast. Like there was this conveyor belt I could not get off. When Britney came back, it stirred up a lot of old feelings. I thought. You thought you would test drive your ex before deciding whether to keep your fiancé. I finished for him, my tone dry as dust. Got it. It was an inventory check. He winced violently. It was not like that. I love you, Ella, but I did panic. I ran. Britney shifted her weight, stepping slightly forward. We realized we are not actually compatible anymore, she stated, speaking with surprising clarity. We have both changed too much. I looked pointedly between them, a slow, deliberate sweep of my eyes. So now that you have confirmed the grass is not greener, I said, drawing out each word. You want to crawl back to the lawn you left half burned and hope I am still here watering it. That is not what I am saying, Jason insisted, desperation beginning to creep into his voice. I love you, Ella. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can postpone the wedding. Take time to rebuild trust. I remained motionless, letting the silence stretch until it was excruciating. What changed? I asked quietly. He blinked, confused by the abrupt shift in my tone. What? 3 days ago. I was not on your level, I reminded him. You needed someone more exciting. What is different now, Jason? His jaw tightened. He looked down at the threadbare welcome mat, unable to meet my gaze. You did not come back, because you realized what you lost, I said, stating the fact as simply as the law of gravity. You came back because it did not work out the way you hoped with her. You ran an experiment. It failed. And now you want your control group back. That is not fair, he said, his voice cracking. People make mistakes. You are really going to throw away our whole relationship over one? Over one what? I interrupted, sharper this time. One massive betrayal, one carefully orchestrated lie. 1 week where you tried to completely rewrite reality. He opened his mouth, then closed it, unable to form a coherent defense. Behind him, Britney finally looked at me, and I saw not rivalry, but pity. Ella, she said softly, you do not have to take him back. You know that, right? Even if he thinks you should. I know, I said, meeting her eyes. And I am not going to. Jason flinched, the sound audible. It was the first time in the entire interaction he had shown genuine, self-pitying pain. Your remaining stuff is packed in boxes by the door, I said, maintaining my direct focus on Jason. I will leave them on the porch tomorrow morning. Do not contact me again, Jason. We are done. You are not even going to consider us, he pleaded. You are asking me to consider taking back someone who demeaned me, lied to my face, and ran to his ex the second things got real, I said. No, Jason. I am not considering that. For a second. His face crumpled in a way that might have broken my resolve once, might have prompted me to step forward and offer comfort. Now, it just looked like consequences. Britney gently touched his arm. He shook her off. "I am sorry," he said, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I am so sorry, Ella." "I am sure you are," I said. "Sorry it blew up. Sorry you have to face people now. But you are not sorry enough to accept that this is permanent. And that is the only apology that would matter." I stepped back just enough to allow the door to swing closed. I did not slam it. I closed it slowly, deliberately, the click of the lock a small but final punctuation mark. I stood there, hand on the cool metal knob, listening to their muffled voices. His frustrated, hers low and tired, as they retreated down the hall and out of my building. For the first time since the bakery, the silence that followed did not feel empty or hostile. It felt like space. It felt like mine. The quiet that settled over the apartment after Jason and Britney left was heavy, but no longer suffocating. It felt like the air after a high fever breaks, still weak, but breathable. The immediate, high-stakes confrontation was over, and now came the painstaking, methodical work of separating two lives that had been intertwined for 2 years. I did not wait for the next morning. I immediately started packing his remaining items. I moved through the apartment with the same deliberate efficiency I used to manage complex project deadlines. Jason had only taken his essentials. The rest was a chaotic mix of forgotten sentimentality and expensive junk. I found boxes in the storage closet and started sorting. I labeled them in my neat, block lettering: kitchen, clothes, bathroom. Each action was detached, a necessary project task. His expensive digital camera, still set to the time zone we had visited together last summer, went into a box. His half-used shaving cream and electric razor went into another. The physical separation was the tangible closure I needed. It was the final contract I could execute. By the time I finished, near midnight, there were 7 neatly stacked boxes by the front door. They looked like the saddest yard sale display in history. I avoided looking at the door, knowing that the confrontation with Jason's presence was over. But the confrontation with his absence was just beginning. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. My first thought was not of him, but of the task ahead. I got dressed, tied my hair back, and carried the boxes, one by one, to the porch outside my door. I stacked them meticulously, labels facing outward, so there would be no doubt what they contained. Then, I retreated inside. I did not want a conversation. I wanted distance, and I wanted privacy for this final surrender. I made a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the street through the thin vertical slats of the blinds. Around 10 o'clock, a car pulled up. It was Britney's silver hatchback. She was driving. Jason got out slowly, looking even more disheveled than he had 2 days prior, his eyes puffy, his posture defeated. Britney walked around the car and onto the porch, while he stayed by the passenger door. Even from inside, I could see how carefully she avoided looking at my door. They did not knock. They did not linger. They simply loaded the boxes methodically, working in silence. The visual, Jason standing by the car while the woman he had cheated with collected his belongings, was almost comically pathetic. They left without a word, the sound of the car pulling away echoing the finality of the closed door. It was over. At least the part involving Jason and Britney was. Over the next week, the truth, as messy and fragmented as it was, began to leak out. It was never a clean release. It was like dyes spreading through water, coloring the perceptions of our mutual world. Melissa called again. "Ha finally told Mom and Dad everything," she said. "About Britney, about the text, about you finding out." He ran out of lies. "How did they react?" I asked, pouring myself a glass of water. "My mom cried," Melissa said flatly. "My dad told Jason he is profoundly disappointed in him, which, to be fair, is the worst thing our dad can say. And both of them asked if they should reach out to you. I said only if you wanted them to." I swallowed, touched by the unexpected loyalty. "I appreciate that, Melissa. They really did love you, Ella. They still do." Later that afternoon, Jason's mother messaged me. It was a long, careful apology. She did not defend him. She did not make excuses for his behavior. She said she was ashamed of how he had treated me, and that I deserved far better. Then, his father emailed, offering to reimburse my share of the wedding deposits. I politely declined both the money and the invitation to talk. Some things, I decided, did not need a post-mortem, they just needed to be buried. Friends were more complicated. Some reached out with genuine sympathy. Others, however, implied I had been too rigid, too focused on checklists and timelines. As if organization were a fatal personality flaw that somehow justified his cheating. They suggested I had pushed him away with my structure. These friendships quietly dissolved. I did not bother correcting their version of events. Let them believe whatever makes their world make sense. People reveal themselves when you are no longer useful to them. I started the process of quiet self-reclamation. I deep cleaned the apartment, scrubbing the lingering phantom scent of him from the air. I rearranged the furniture, physically reshaping the space to fit only me. I took down the few framed engagement photos, replacing them with book covers, postcards from Noah, and a thrift store painting of a very confused-looking cat that made absolutely no sense, but felt perfectly right above my couch. The space was still wounded, still healing, but it was lighter, like someone had finally opened a window after a long, stale winter. Weeks passed, and the quiet relief I had found in clearing the rubble hardened into a steady, protective resilience. I had cut the strings, but the puppet master was still trying to pull them from a distance. The most shocking twist came 2 weeks after Jason had retrieved his boxes. Melissa called again, her voice bubbling with barely contained amusement. "Oh my God, Ella," she said. "You are not going to believe this." "What?" I asked, pausing the slow process of organizing my spice rack, a task that demanded precise attention. Jason and Britney broke up. I blinked, momentarily stilled. "Already?" "Yep," she confirmed. "Massive meltdown. He accused her of lying to him about the timeline of their reunion. She said he blindsided her emotionally. They had this huge fight and called it quits. Apparently, the chaos of his old relationship was too much even for the chaos of his new one. The irony was so sharp it almost made me smile. He had abandoned a stable future for a burst of destructive nostalgia, only for the nostalgia to prove itself volatile and temporary. It was perfect, efficient self-sabotage. "He keeps asking about you," Melissa continued. "If you are okay, if you are dating, if you would ever talk to him." My heartbeat did not even change tempo. "What do you tell him?" That you have moved on, she said. And that he needs to do the same. Good. There was a pause. Have you moved on? She asked gently. I looked around my apartment. The half-finished jigsaw puzzle on the coffee table, the vase of grocery store flowers I had bought myself 2 days ago. The small, quiet life reassembling itself piece by piece. I am getting there, I said honestly. Some days are harder, but I am not waiting for him, and I never will. Good, she said fiercely. You deserve someone who does not make you a backup plan for a failed experiment. A warm feeling settled in my chest, a mixture of gratitude and relief. I had not lost Jason's family, I had gained a fiercely loyal ally. Another month passed. I started going to the gym again, not to look good for anyone, but to fill the endless stretch of time with physical exhaustion. I needed the discipline of a new routine. I needed to build strength from the inside out. The biggest step in reclaiming my life came in the form of an adoption application. I adopted a dog, a 5-year-old rescue mutt named Murphy. He looked like a combination of a lab, a terrier, and a gremlin, all battling for dominance in one fluffy body. He chewed my slippers, barked indignantly at squirrels, and snored louder than humanly possible. He was a mess, but he followed me around like I was the sun, a perfect, unconditional, slightly slobbery presence. I needed that lovable, demanding chaos. He made me laugh every single day. Jason did not stop trying to insert himself into my new structure. A long email arrived one evening, pouring out explanations, context, and things he wished he had said sooner. I read the first 2 paragraphs, which centered on his panic and fear of commitment, closed the message, and permanently deleted it. I refused to grant him the platform of my time. A month later, a short birthday text arrived. Hope you are well. Thinking of you today. Then, through Melissa, he tried for the final push. He asked if we could meet for coffee. Just for closure, he claimed. I did not hesitate. No. I told her. Tell him I already have closure. He just was not part of it. Word traveled through our mutual circles that Jason was not doing great. He had started therapy, apparently trying to understand why he had so efficiently sabotaged a stable relationship for a quick burst of manufactured nostalgia. Friends had distanced themselves, tired of his victim complex. I did not take pleasure in his discomfort, but I did not feel guilty either. Healing is not owed to the person who inflicted the wound. 2 months after the breakup, a wedding invitation arrived from a college friend. I held the crisp, heavy envelope for a second, expecting some familiar sting, some echo of what should have been. Instead, I felt happy. Just simply, quietly happy for him and his partner. It startled me in the best possible way. Maybe that was the sign I had been waiting for. Not fireworks, not an epiphany. Just quiet, uncomplicated joy for someone else's milestone. A life no longer measured against what I had lost. It has been 4 months since the cake tasting that marked the end of my perfectly scheduled life. The initial shock had long worn off. The anger had been channeled into productive action, and the grief had subsided into quiet acceptance. I no longer measure my days by the milestones I missed, but by the small victories I am stacking up. I continue to decline Jason's attempts at communication. I did not take his father's money for the deposits, nor did I respond to the last text message Melissa forwarded, which simply asked, Does she hate me? The question was irrelevant. Hatred is an investment of energy, and I had closed that account. I had found closure through self-sufficiency, not through his participation. I have started dating again. Nothing serious, nothing promising, but not terrible either. There was a first date with an architect, who only talked about his boat, and a second with a teacher, who told really bad puns, but was genuinely kind. I am open in a way I was not before, not necessarily hopeful, but curious. I am exploring what kind of person I am when I am not functioning as someone else's stability system. The clarity I gained from being told I was not on his level became my unexpected armor. I know precisely what I will not tolerate now. I will not tolerate being made to feel like I am too organized or too methodical. I will not tolerate being anyone's second choice or a fallback option when the exciting life gets too complicated. I definitely will not tolerate being told I am not on someone's level by a man who needed 2 women to prop up his shaky ego. People sometimes ask me, hypothetically, if I would take Jason back if he showed up tomorrow. Dramatically transformed, truly remorseful, a person reborn from the ashes of his self-destruction. The answer, which used to require a second of thought, is now immediate and easy: no. I would not take him back, because even if he changed, I have changed. I am not the woman who would accept that version of the relationship anymore. I used to define my value by the structure I could maintain, the commitment I could secure, and the future I could plan. Now, I define it by the boundaries I enforce and the quiet joy I allow myself. I look at Murphy, my 5-year-old gremlin mutt, snoring loudly on the floor beside me. He is a mess. He demands walks, needs feeding, and is utterly unpredictable. He has forced me to embrace moments of spontaneity and chaos that my old self would have rigidly scheduled out. He is the opposite of the project plan, and he makes me happy. My apartment, once a model home for our expected future, now feels like a warm, slightly eccentric reflection of me. I am currently trying to learn to play the ukulele badly, and the noise is just for me. My fridge is stocked with my favorite foods, not his. The whole space hums with the singular energy of a life lived on my terms. Last night, I took Murphy for our final walk of the evening. The air was cool, smelling faintly of autumn leaves and impending rain. The streetlights cast soft, golden pools on the sidewalk.